This is the Meeting of Minds podcast with me, Philippa Robinson. In this episode of the Meeting of Minds podcast, I'm in conversation with Rachael. I've known Rachael all her life and I'm very proud to be her godmother. It was fabulous listening to her experience so far of being in her 20s and her hopes for the rest of the decade. She is thoughtful, kind and determined. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Now, over to Rachael. So, Rachael, hi, good morning.
Hi, Philippa, good morning.
Hi, how are you today? Okay?
Yes, I'm great, thank you. How are
Good,
you?
good. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the on my podcast. I really appreciate it, and especially taking your time up on a Saturday morning. So thank you.
Oh, it's fine.
And we're here to talk about your 20s, and of course you're not far into your 20s, are you? You're 22 now.
Yes. Yeah,
Yes, of course you are. I was thinking you're still 21, so you're another year into that now. So you're 22 now, and you're in your last year at university, and so I can't wait for you to tell me how you found your 20s so far, and then perhaps more about what is to come. So how's it been so far?
Yes, it's been great so far. I think everyone can say that it's been very dynamic, what with COVID happening from March. So I think that my 20s have been put on hold from being 21 and a half. So I'm not 22 yet. But yes, it's been very changeable for me. It kind of started off with my second year of uni and living in a 8-person student house and having loads of fun, to then turning 21 and life completely changing in a way and starting a work placement and living away from my friends. So yeah, it's been very changeable so far.
Yeah, so when lockdown hit in March, actually, you were in the middle of your placement year, weren't you?
Yes.
So you then did a lot of, you went back to your mum's, didn't you? And you did a lot of, so you worked from home from there, and then come October, presumably, you went back to university to finish your final year off.
Yes, I did.
And that's all been online, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, It has. So everything's been completely online since March. So luckily, I wasn't one of the people who were furloughed, and I got to carry on doing my job from virtually. But it's very different to what I'm used to. I was used to going into the office every day, and then obviously going in to university for lectures every day. So it's very different.
Yeah, it must be. And actually, you're the only person I'm actually speaking to during this series who is still at university, because you've done your year, because yours is a 4-year with a year placement. You're still there, aren't you? And I've just realised you're the only one I'm speaking to who's still there. And how is it? So I just did a straight degree, 3 years, then you go out and work. How is it sort of like having 2 years, then going to work, then going back? I mean, to be honest, that sounds, I mean, I kind of know why they do it, don't get me wrong, but that sounds quite hard to me, the adjustment from one thing to another and then adjusting back. How have you found it?
Yes, it was a very difficult decision, I remember at the time, to take a whole year out, because I was aware of the fact that I wasn't going to be living with my university friends once I did my 3rd year, because they would have all graduated.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very big decision that I had to make, and I had to sort of weigh up the pros and cons. And then when my university is in Newcastle and my placement was in Manchester, so fortunately, my placement was closer to home, which is in Wigan. So I was able to visit my family a lot, which was quite nice. It was nice to be able to see my mum as often as I wanted. But living in Manchester was a big change because I didn't really get on with the people who I ended up living with because I just met them on spareroom.com, which is the house sharing thing, and they were already friends and we just didn't really click. So it was definitely a big change. But I think on the whole, coming back to uni, it's been really beneficial because it's definitely improved my work ethic.
We were talking about work ethics before I started recording, weren't we? And I was telling you how awful mine was. So I'm glad to hear yours is not as bad as mine. That's good.
Yeah, it's. I think once you get in a 9-to-5 routine and then you go back to uni, you it's all right to adapt back to uni. And then it's with university being online and you being trusted to just dial into a Zoom call for your lecture, it definitely helps, because I don't know how effective I would be at that if I hadn't had a work placement.
Yeah, so was your year out optional? You didn't have to do it. It wasn't part of the course that you absolutely had to do.
No, I didn't have to do it.
So actually, if you'd not done that, you would have done your third year last year, and you would have still had to do all the dialing in and finish your year off virtually, because that's what would have happened from March, but without sort of, perhaps the benefit of being in work and got that work ethic you've just talked about that you're bringing to your final year now, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been it's been really beneficial, and I was worried about my friends having left university when I got back.
Yeah, I bet you were.
Because of the COVID outbreak, and because some of them had decided to originally, everyone ended up staying and doing a master's. So I'm doing my third year now and they're all doing masters, and so we get to live with each other, so it's great.
So actually, that's really interesting, isn't it, that it's all worked out? So do you feel you made the right decision?
Yes, definitely. And I'm glad in hindsight that I didn't just decide to do my third year, which would have been probably the easier decision, because it has all worked out for the better, really. So
yeah. You said it was a tough decision. I'm really interested how people make decisions, so that's why I'm sort of asking you. And I was doing a talk the other day about making decisions, and I just wondered, how did you make the decision? Can you remember?
Yes, well, I was always keen to gain work experience, so that was a big sort of driver.
Get the experience that would either give you I suppose ultimately it's going to help you get a job.
Yes. Yeah. That was the main.
Okay, so that's what you mean by getting the experience, and also experience in whatever sector you worked in, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, and I also I do a geography degree, which I really enjoy, just because, and I just chose to do it because I really enjoy geography, but I didn't necessarily have an idea of what I wanted to do with it and what career I wanted to take. So that was also that's also why I wanted to gain work experience, just to give myself a better idea of what working would be like and what I could do with my degree. And so those were big drivers for me. And then I can't really remember how I ended up deciding to do the placement. I think my mum was a big persuader, because she definitely wanted me to do it, as I'm sure you can imagine.
I'm sure, yes. Just for anybody who's listening, Rachael's mum is my best and oldest friend. So yes, I'm sure I can imagine she was very persuasive.
Yeah. So Yeah, so it was just about weighing up the pros and cons, I think, and deciding that no matter what happened, and no matter if I didn't end up living with my friends in third year, it doesn't necessarily mean that I didn't have to, I wouldn't keep in contact with them, and then it would all be over and we wouldn't get another opportunity to live with each other in the future. So I think sometimes you've just got to take the risk, and sometimes it works out.
Absolutely. That is absolutely right on point for what I'm trying to get across in this podcast. So thank you for that. And that is one of my little sayings, that the only risk in life is to take no risk at all. So and that card, the postcard that I've got came from Lisa. I've had that on my wall for a long time. So I think you're right. And it must have been tough deciding against potentially, which hasn't obviously worked out, living with people you didn't know in your third year and your friends might all have gone, versus getting that work experience. And actually, that's a tough decision, isn't it? It's like, what is good for now versus what might be better for the future. And that's a really hard decision to be making at 20, 21, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I think, but something that my mum always told me as well was, work hard. If you work hard earlier, then you can reap the benefits later on. So I suppose I'm just waiting for my late 20s.
Yeah. and listening to your mum. I'll have to get your mum on the podcast somewhere along the line and get her with her pearls of wisdom, won't I?
Influence.
Yeah. yeah, that's really funny, thinking of your mum as as your good influence as we grew up together and went to school together. So well, I mean, and that's fabulous to hear that it's all worked out well, and that you had a good year and you enjoyed the work placement, didn't you? I think.
Yeah, I enjoyed the work placement.
Yeah, and now you're back in Newcastle with your friends as well, so brilliant.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Have you any idea or plans, or what you're thinking might come next? Because obviously that's next year, isn't it? You'll graduate. Well, I hope you do get to graduate, because obviously everybody last year didn't, but you will finish next summer, won't you?
Yes, I will. And I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do after university. At the moment, I'm applying for jobs for graduation as well. So
yeah,
a big job. And then but I come to realize that a lot of the jobs that I'm applying to want masters as well. So I might end up in the situation where all of my master's friends have left and I'm in that situation again. But if it comes to that, then I'm just going to hope that I can carry on in Newcastle and live with people who I like again.
Yeah. Do you like Newcastle?
I love Newcastle.
Do you?
I really do. It's a really lovely city. I just think after living, I've only really lived in Manchester and Newcastle, and obviously in Wigan you can go to Liverpool and Manchester and all those all the local places. But I think Newcastle's so much nicer as a city, and it's small, so you can sort of get around everywhere walking, and it's got a beach that's only 20 minutes away. So and it's a great student city as well. I mean, before the COVID outbreak, it was really fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, I bet you're really glad you had a great time in your first and second year, aren't you?
Yeah. I feel really sorry for freshers who've started university now, and they don't get the full experience, but hopefully they will at some point. So
yeah, hopefully. I've heard some quite sad stories actually of some people who started university this year and are not having a great time. So I mean, it is about working hard, I believe. Not that I work that hard, but and having a good time, isn't it? So I'm glad, it's good that you had your first and second year, and then because it wouldn't have been the same in your third year if you'd done your third year straight off anyway, would it?
No,
No.
Definitely.
And Newcastle then, so I grew up in Wigan, but Bristol, I really like Bristol because it's manageable, it's small, you've got all the benefits of it being a city and all the amenities of it being a city, but it's really easy to get around. But we don't have a nice beach anywhere near as close as 20 minutes. So yes, I'm quite envious of your beach. Can't have everything. So yeah, I was talking to another guest on my podcast a few weeks ago, and who's just left university, and she was saying that she's going on to do a master's because that's sort of a lot of graduate jobs want masters now.
Yeah, it's strange. I didn't expect that. I thought an undergraduate degree would be enough, but it seems not.
No, and that's more studying, it's more fees, it's more, isn't it, before you start getting a job. That's quite tough, isn't it?
Yeah, it is quite tough, and I think that companies should offer to do sponsored masters instead, so that we don't have to spend another year being not having any money and managing on student loans and things like that. And a lot of companies do, I think, but I was quite surprised to see that a lot of companies are requiring masters, because it's sort of, it's impressive to have a degree full stop, let alone have a master's.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is. It's hard enough for some people to get through, school and A levels and get your degree, and now it being almost, it's almost like it seems to me that you need a master's, like you needed a degree when I was there. It's like, why? And yeah, that's really tough. Well, I hope you be great if you could find a sponsored one. So who knows what could happen, what may or may not happen. But are you kind of a planner and a researcher and look it all up and work it all out, or are you a bit of a, well, let's see what happens and I'm sure it'll all come together? What sort of person are you, do you think?
Oh, I'm definitely it will work out.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, I try not. I think for the short term things, I am a bit of a planner, and I'm a bit highly strung, I think. So I just I try to plan everything. But I think in terms of the future and late into my 20s, I've not really thought about it at all. But yeah, I thought my ambition for the future is I want to reach a point where I live alone for a bit.
Does that come from living in a house with 7 other people, do you think?
Yeah. It was always an absolute tip. It was disgusting. So, and I'm a bit of a clean freak. So the thought of living alone with only myself to clean up after is really like a soothing thought for me.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that feeling. I get that. So that's a soothing thought. I love that. What a great phrase. I can just see you imagining like a little pristine, don't have to, not anything big, but just pristine, small and pristine and tidy, and how soothing that would be for you. Oh, bless you. And what else do you think forms part of that future Rachael's vision?
I think I'd like a cat in the house that I live in on my own. I think that if I'm imagining myself to have be very career orientated, then I'm not going to necessarily have time for a job in my for a dog. So I love cats as well. So I really want a cat.
Oh.
Not very ambitious, but
just a little place to live on my own with my cat.
Yeah. It sounds like heaven. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, that is, I love it that that's your idea of heaven, because if you don't have what that idea is, it's quite hard to actually ever get there, isn't it? If you don't know where you're trying to get to. And keeping it simple, I think, well, I say simple, it's hard these days to even rent on your own or buy on your own. It's all so expensive, isn't it? So who knows what's going to happen. And what do you think? Have you got any ideas career-wise what you might do?
Well, I think my placement last year gave me a really good idea, and I think I'm looking at environmental consultancy positions at the moment, and sort of environmental health and safety roles in mostly like building and construction companies.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's not the most interesting, but I like the sort of environmental sustainability role, and I think it's quite an honourable career to have. So
I agree with you. I am beaming like a very proud godmother here. So I think that's amazing, and that's what we need. People who are going into jobs that are, for the future. And I know you said, it might not sound very interesting, but I mean, what one person finds interesting might not be what somebody else. Doesn't mean it's not interesting, does it? And you're talking to somebody who used to be a risk and compliance officer, and I didn't wake up one day and go, I want to be a risk and compliance officer, because that does sound really boring. But we end up doing things, don't we? And it is what we make of it. And is that an emerging or a already thriving sort of career sector?
I think it is. It's definitely emerging. It's sort of that in my experience, everyone sort of said that health and safety was a really big thing in the past few decades, and now people are looking at companies to be more environmentally conscious. So I think that it's definitely an emerging sector.
So do you mean by that health and safety with a view to, if they're not doing things in accordance with health and safety, you're looking at an environmental risk rather than a risk to life or a risk to business or a risk to reputation? You're looking at a environmental risk.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, like, so I don't know, something getting into the water system that shouldn't be in there and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's like whereas at one point they didn't really consider the risk involved without health and safety measures. And now environmental measures are becoming more important as well. And sort of environment, health and safety is sort of lumped together now in a lot of businesses.
Right.
It's becoming as important, which is good, I think.
Cool. And obviously you're a woman, and is that are there a lot of women in that area, or is it quite male heavy? It sounds like it might be, but I'm not sure. I mean, I know nothing about it, so that is my guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. It's definitely very male heavy, and it's definitely it's coming along because obviously companies are trying to employ more women, and there's going to be more equality definitely in like the sort of construction industry and things like that, which is great. But I definitely found whilst I was doing my placement, when I was going on site, then it would be definitely very male dominated, and it was quite it wasn't intimidating, but it was definitely a strange environment to be in, and they're all having their sort of manly conversations.
The banter.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that looking into the future, you definitely have to be very strong in character to sort of be in that kind of role.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of why I asked, really. So do you and obviously a year placement doing that hasn't put you off. So, you're up for that then.
Yes, I am up for that. I don't really think. I think I might be a bit too nice at the moment. I think I'm going to have to get.
There's nothing wrong with being nice. I think it's interesting, isn't it? You hear people saying that I'm too nice for this, and I think I'm a great advocate in people just being themselves, and you are. I'm not going to say you're nice, you're lovely, you're kind, you're polite, you've got lots of great qualities. And yes, I don't know, I suppose temptation might be to club those together, and say that you're nice, but don't stop being any of those things, because they're fabulous. And I just think, also when you're feeling a bit, what's the word? So I'm imagining you out on a site with all these men and their banter, and there you are, not only are you, you're 20, 21, so I'm sure you're probably the youngest there, you're the only woman, and it's like, oh God, and it's probably easy for you, it's an easy place for you to go to think, oh, I'm too nice, I need to sort of toughen up or whatever. But actually that's not right. You just keep hold of that night. It's just because it's new, and when it's not so new, you won't feel quite so out of place, but you will still be the fabulous you that you are. So I just believe that a lot of women, so I worked as a lawyer, and when I started, we were told, oh, you're not to wear trousers. I mean, that's how archaic it was. I started work in a big London law firm, and they took all the women trainee solicitors to one side and said, you're not allowed to wear trousers. And it's just archaic. I mean, I know, look at you laughing. It's just hilarious, isn't it? I mean, that was 1992, which I suppose is 28 years ago. But, that seems like it's from another era, doesn't it? A whole different, I mean, obviously I'm a lot older than you, but, it was very male dominated. And I don't know what it's like now in those law firms. And there is a tendency to feel like you've got to. A lot of the women who were at the top were quite hard. That's not they were tough. They'd had to work their way through, and some made it easier for the women, and some made it very hard for the women. And I just think if we can all be who we are as we go through life, and encourage other people along with us, behind us, whatever. I'm sort of messing this up a little bit, but I just think people should try and know who they are and be who they are, and know that is absolutely enough, perfect. Just be who you are. So I'm sure you'll be amazing. So I'm imagining you now out in some field or by a lake or wherever you are, in a building somewhere with a hard hat on, and dealing with these, and then going dealing with all these men and their banter all day, and then you're going home to your little cat in your nice clean flat. I mean, it's lovely.
That sounds ideal to me, actually.
So if you come on the podcast, God willing, the podcast will keep going. You can come back on in a few years and tell us how you're getting on. Yeah. So, that's all fabulous. So, do you have any? Well, I was going to say tips that the listeners might find interesting, but you've kind of told us about making decision. You have that hard decision to make, and whether you made it based on sort of now, what is better now, or what is better for the future, and it's sort of weighing those two up, isn't it? And listening to your mum, obviously. Were there did you have any others that you feel might be sort of useful, for yourself or for anybody else who's listening?
Yes, I think well, in my experience, there's obviously take the risk.
Of course.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully all work out well. And also, I think before I started my placement, I think that it's really made me more open and confident. And I think don't be afraid to sort of ask questions and get involved in things. Because I also found that I really enjoyed getting involved in sort of like volunteer work and stuff like that, which beforehand I would never volunteer to do, and I would never get involved in. I would just, want to go home and watch the telly. But I think to get involved in as much as you can, because you always end up enjoying it without realizing that you would.
Yeah, it's amazing what you get if you can just sort of grit your teeth and put yourself out there. Really cool. And it is. I remember taking my son to a new I can't remember what it was, but to a new class or something. I don't know, when he was little and he was trying things out. And he just said, "Oh, I'm really nervous." I said, "I know." I said, "I always feel nervous when I start something new. I mean, it's, going to a new yoga class or whatever." I said, "But actually, by the time you've been 2 or 3 times, you're not the new one anymore. But also you're a bit more used to it, and it's not." And he went, "All right, okay." And then, when he dropped that and started something else, I noticed the next time it was easier. He wasn't quite so nervous. So actually, the more you can throw yourself into things, and it is amazing what you get out of volunteering.
Yeah,
isn't it? And actually, you could go home and spend a night watching the TV, or you could go and spend a couple of hours doing something else. Obviously you can volunteer doing absolutely anything, but what you get out of that and giving back, not giving out without expecting anything back, is quite incredible. But I think you do have to do it for you to realize that there is it's not just somebody getting your time for free. You get something out of it as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what sort of things did you do?
It was a voluntary sort of group in the company.
Yeah.
It was the community support fund, so we did all sorts of stuff for local charities in Manchester.
Yeah.
And we also had 2 sponsored annual charities in the year that I was working. So
yeah.
In the first year, it was Maggie's cancer charity in Manchester.
Yeah.
And so for that, we got involved in raffles. We did a 10K walk, but it was also a sort of culture crawl. So we stopped at museums and things like that, and we went all the way up Oxford Road in Manchester, and we ended up we went to Pizza Express and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun, but we were just getting involved in it to raise money. And then the second year, it was the Wellspring Homeless Charity in Manchester.
Right.
And we had lots of great things planned for that, but they were cut short, unfortunately, because of COVID. But for that, we had planned. We were going to do a camp out, a sponsored camp out in the office car park.
In the office car park? Oh, that sounds. Actually, it probably would have been quite a laugh if you're all doing it. Sounds like there's quite a good bunch of people there if you can do things like that and enjoy it. Like there's enough people who do it. That's great.
Yeah, it was a great bunch. It was lots of fun. Yeah, definitely.
Good. Well, that is fabulous. And sorry, what did you say? That was your second thing. You said take a risk, and you talked about volunteering. Was there something in the middle? I'm sure you said something else.
I don't know. Ask questions. I don't.
That's it. That was it. Thank you. Sorry. Ask questions, and because that made me think that. I think when you start something new, you always feel a bit like, I don't know anything, and it's not okay to admit that you don't know what you're doing. Whereas actually, everybody else knows that you're new, and they know that you don't know anything. So actually, they're almost waiting for you to ask questions. And then when you don't, they probably think that you know. So it's all that like, I can't ask, and they're going, why aren't they asking? And then it's like, so actually. By asking questions, you get yourself out of like, I don't know what I'm doing. And you're actually giving them something by letting them explain to you. So actually, it is a brilliant thing to do, but I also know it's not easy. So I think that's a really great thing to remind anybody who's listening to this, that actually really don't be afraid to ask questions. And also, if you're new and you don't know what you're doing and you ask a question and somebody is not very nice to you, that is their thing. They're obviously having a bad day, or there is something going on for them. It's not because, I mean, it might be because you've asked a question, but it's not like you shouldn't have asked that question. So don't be put off by it, because that happens as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what I definitely dreaded. I didn't want, anyone to come back and say, stop asking me questions, or that they didn't have time for me. But actually, there are so few people out there who are like that, I think. And like you say, they could just be having a bad day. And most of the time, people actually enjoy helping other people.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, or it didn't just click for me.
Yeah, no, and it but it obviously has, because it clicked for you now, for you to have mentioned it, which is a really great thing to talk about, because that is true. And so don't be put off if it's really hard if the first time you ask you get a bit of a snotty answer, because that does put you off. But it's try and be a bit resilient and find somebody else to ask next time, or pick a better time, or whatever it is. But ask, because that's really the only way you're going to find out, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, lots of great advice. That is brilliant. Was there anything else that we're just about to come on to the last thing I want to ask you? I just wondered if there was anything else that you wanted to mention.
No, I don't think.
No. Cool. So the last thing is, I'm asking everybody whether they have like a quote or a motto or a saying or something that you find helps you, or other people say to you that helps you, that you might think is useful to that. And you've already given us a few of those. So I'm really interested what the surprise one at the end is. So I know you've got one. What is it?
Yeah, it's kind of in with the theme. It's take the risk or lose the chance.
Or lose
the chance.
The chance. Love that. Take the risk or lose the chance. And actually, you've embodied that, haven't you, with the decision that you made about your your placement, and you've told us how that actually worked out great. So it was a great thing for you to do, and actually it's worked out okay, totally okay for you.
Yeah, so far. Yeah.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Rachael, thank you so much. You've been brilliant, and thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. You take care, okay?
Yeah, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends. Please subscribe. And if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website at www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.